Hello and welcome one and all. Today we are going to continue with PySpark tutorial. In the previous session, we covered the setup, learned about the basics of PySpark, and explored few of the features that it offers. For example, DataFrame API and Spark SQL. In this session, we will further explore these features before we dive into building ETL pipelines with Spark. Let's cover the context and the importance of PySpark in the current space of data. We all know and love Pandas for its flexibility and versatility when it comes to data operations. However, there comes a point when we run into memory issues due to sheer size of the data. It's not Pandas' issue per se, however, it is the constraint of the machine that it is running on. We can max out the RAM on a single machine if our data volume is larger than the machine's RAM, and this will raise memory errors. We can get around these by using the chunk size to process the data in batches, or simply filter the data prior to loading it into Pandas. And this is one of the common questions I get asked on the Pandas series. PySpark offers a solution here. We have a DataFrame API on Spark, and Spark is a distributed engine designed for processing large amount of data. It offers scalability beyond a single machine. The DataFrame API on Spark scales well to large clusters of node. Let's look at the study done by Databricks on the DataFrame API, and this chart from them shows that the DataFrame API performance when analyzing a 15 terabyte Parquet dataset. And we have different size cluster, and each machine in the cluster has 8 CPUs and 61 gigs of RAM. The distributed execution of DataFrame API on Spark scales well. The performance gain doubles in this test as we add more resources. The execution time decreases by half when the number of machines within a cluster doubles. I will leave the link to the article in the description below in case if you want to give it a read. Okay, let's move on to the topic on hand. In the previous session, we read the data from a CSV file into a data frame. This time around, we will read the data from a database. This way we cover different sources that we can read from with PySpark. Let's go ahead and open our notebooks and start with PySpark DataFrame API. As usual, we will import the required libraries at the top. We set the Java home variable to the Java installed location. Remember, this is required for Spark. And next, we define Spark configuration detail and initiate a session. Let's read data from a SQL database. In order to connect to the database, we define database details along with credentials. And using this information, we built a JDBC URL. In order to read data, we call the Spark read function. We specify the data source, which is JDBC, along with extra options such as URL, table, credentials, and the driver name. This function will load the data into a data frame. And now that we have the data frame, we are able to run DataFrame API operations on it. Along with that, we can use SQL to query this data. Let's start with getting a look at our data frame with show function. By default, this function shows top 20 rows. And if you want to get a better presentation of the data, we can convert this to a Pandas data frame for better readability. DataFrame API allows us to perform various operations with ease. Let's take a look at a few examples. We can rename column with column rename function. It takes the old and the new column name. So this will rename our English product name to product name. If we want to check how many rows our data set contains, we can use the count function to get the row count. And if you want to select subset of columns from a data frame, we can do that with select function and supply the columns that we need. Furthermore, we can sort our dataset with sort function. We provided the column we want to sort it by, and by default, the sort order is ascending. If we want to reverse the sort order, we need to import the functions from Spark SQL. We'll import it as f, then we call the sort and supply the keyword DESC for descending, to the function along with the column name, and this sorts our data set in descending order. And if you want to check the data type of our columns in this data set, we can do that with print schema. Next, let's look at the filter. The data we import will contain additional information, and this information might not be relevant for analysis. We can filter out the irrelevant data with filter. We call the select function and supply the column we need, and on this we can chain the filter. In the filter function, we provide the column name and the value. In this case, we want to view the records where the product key equals 22. Let's preview the dataset with show function. We can also write the column without quotes if our columns do not contain any space. And this is the same as above. Filter function also supports wildcard operations. We can select products where the name includes the keyword helmet and enclose that in % for the wildcard, so it'll match the word helmet if it's anywhere within the string. This will return all the product that contains the keyword helmet. We can provide multiple conditions to filter. Each condition must be in the parentheses, and we can separate the condition with AND or OR clause. Here we are specifying that we want records for products that contains the word helmet and only the products where the color is black. Here are the records that meet our filter criteria. And if you prefer SQL, we can perform all of these operations in SQL. For this, we need to create a view based on our data frame, and once we have a view, we can write SQL using Spark SQL. We select the column we need in a standard SQL syntax and provide the filter condition in the where clause. This will filter out the data only for this condition. So you can do pretty much anything with it that you can think of using SQL. Next, we are importing a new data set. This contains the sales transaction for our products. In the database terms, this is a fact table. This has a lot more rows as it records all the sales transaction for our products. We will create a view from this data frame, and let's go ahead and cache this for better performance. In order to get the sales figure for our products, we need to join the two views. Once again, we can perform this with the DataFrame API or SQL. We'll see examples of both. We can issue the following SQL query in Spark SQL. Here we are selecting product name and sales amount. We join the product and sales view on the product key column, and we are filtering the records for the product that contains the keyword helmet. Since we're using an aggregate function in the select, sum on sales amount, we need to group it by product name. We sort our query in descending order on the sales amount, and this displays the product along with their respective sales figures. We can perform the same join operation with DataFrame. We join the sales and DF data frames on product key, and we only want the matching rows from both data frames. And we can achieve this with the keyword inner. So this is the equivalent of inner join in SQL. Similarly, we can perform aggregate on the join data frame with a group by function. We group the dataset with product and color. So we are supplying multiple columns to group by. And the aggregate function we are calling is sum, and we apply it on the sales amount. Let's suppose we want to see the sales and the max sales amount for each product and color. We'll end up with two columns with exactly the same name. In this scenario, we can use the alias function to rename the columns. Most often, we will derive new columns for analysis based on existing columns in our dataset. We can achieve this in various ways. First, we'll compute a net sales column with column function. We supply the new column name, then supply the column to the f.call function. We are subtracting the tax amount from the sales to get a net sales column. If we print out our data frame, we'll have a new column called net sales at the very end. We can also create a column based on a condition. We can use a construct like a case statement in PySpark to derive a new column. Let's take a look at it with an example. We call the withColumn function and supply the new column name. When the column value equals the value we supply it, then we set a value for this condition. In this example, we are creating a region column. When the sales territory key is 7, then the region should be Europe. We specify multiple when conditions and compare the value and then set a value for the new column. And if the value does not meet the specified condition, then it falls under otherwise. We set the otherwise to Americas. So if the condition is not met, all other values will be set to Americas for this column. Let's go ahead and preview the data frame, and we have the region column all the way at the end. We can check the distinct values in this column to verify our logic. This is how we can get the distinct values of a column in the DataFrame API. Last, we'll go ahead and remove the null values from a column. The carrier tracking number column has nulls. We use the withColumn function again, and similar construct as above. We check if the column values are null. If this is true, then we specify a value. Otherwise, we set it to the existing column value. This will replace the null or none values with the value we have provided. We can go ahead and print out the data frame and verify the column that all the nulls has been replaced with zeros. And in some cases, we may want to drop a column. We don't need the column in our data set and it's just holding space in RAM. We can use the drop function to drop a column from our data frame. We supply the column we want to drop. This will remove the column from our data frame. I think these are some of the common DataFrame API operations. There are many more, and if you want to explore these further, then check out the Spark documentation. I will leave the link to the documentation in the description below.